On the one hand, I'm a strong believer in fiscal responsibility. On the other hand, we actually have to make some significant investments in order to keep our economy competitive. And so what I want to do is to institute some basic principles that will move us in the direction of fiscal responsibility without making a fetish of perfectly balancing the federal budget. Let me give you some examples of the things I want to get done right away. Number one, I want to institute what's called PAYGO. It's a very simple concept. It was breached during the Bush administration. I, as president, will observe it, and it says if you want to cut taxes for anybody, you've got to find some off-cutting taxes, or tax breaks that you're closing, or you've got to cut spending. So if you're losing revenue, then you got to pick up revenue somewhere else. If you want to increase spending, then you've got to eliminate some programs that you're already spending money on, or you've got to increase revenues. The point is, you can't keep on running up the credit card under the name of our children, borrowing from the Bank of China. That's unacceptable. So that's point number one. Point number two, I do think that we have to examine how we're currently spending our federal dollars, because there remains unwise spending in the federal budget. Now, it's not, 20% of the budget. It's not, 15% of the budget, but there's probably somewhere between 5 and 10% of the budget where the money could be more effectively used elsewhere. And that involves auditing our federal spending. That was part of the first step of setting up this searchable database to see where money is going. That increases transparency and accountability. And then I think we have to examine, do we have a bunch of no-bid contracts that could be bid out and done more efficiently? Are we spending on programs that have outlived their usefulness? Even programs that might have sounded good on paper, but just don't work. And I am a progressive, but I always tell people that if you're progressive, you should be fiscally even more conservative than the so-called conservatives. And the reason is because there are a lot of needs that need to be, where we need to spend money. We can't afford to waste money on stuff that we don't need. So I want to examine and eliminate some spending, and earmarks are a good example of where many of these earmarks are worthy projects, but they may not be of the highest priority. And we've got to prioritize particularly our capital spending in a more intelligent way. So that's number two. Number three, I've already said, and you are right, I will roll back the Bush tax cuts on you and me. Now keep in mind that affects the marginal rate at the top. So it will go back to where it was during Bill Clinton. And I would argue that most rich people were doing pretty good in the 90s. They were rich then, and they will still be rich after I am president. So rest assured.